The way you conduct job interviews as a manager or a leader, it has changed. Rather than make the candidate feel uncomfortable and try to catch them out, a much more effective aim to have when you conduct a job interview is to look for a connection, to look for a good fit between the candidate and the company they'll be working for, or even the team that they'll be working in. This makes the job interview much less stressful for the candidate and also for you as the interviewer. You should generally look at a job interview in 5 stages, and the first stage happens before the interview, and this is where you prepare for the job interview. A lot of managers and leaders don't prepare for a job interview. Apart from creating the job advertisement and sifting through the applications, a lot of people don't prepare what they're going to say or what questions they're going to ask in the interview. But this is a really important step that you shouldn't miss, because the more time you put into preparing for the job interview, the more successful the interview will be. I mean, imagine having the perfect candidate in front of you, but never knowing that because you didn't ask the right questions or you didn't pull the right information from them to understand that they were the perfect candidate. Well, adequate preparation for a job interview will help you avoid this. I recommend you start by identifying the skills that you want the successful candidate to have. What technical skills do you want them to have? What soft skills do they need to be successful in this role? You might have already thought about this when you created the job advertisement, but if you haven't, now is the time to do it. Then you need to develop questions that will help you identify whether the candidate does have these skills or whether they have the capacity to learn these skills. Remember, it's rare that a candidate will have 100% of the skills that you require. Don't be put off by that. The more important thing that you need to look at is whether they have the ability to learn those skills. And this is something that you can detect, and you should be able to detect by asking the right questions during the job interview. Next, you want to read the CV or the resume of the job applicants. Don't be lazy and skip this step. Don't think that you'll just get them to tell you about their experience and their skill set during the interview, because if you do this, you could be missing out on understanding some really important skills that they might have, and not to mention opportunities for you to think of what questions to ask them. So familiarize yourself with this person's CV. Look at their career history, their skills, their competencies, their advancement, and their education too. And as you look at all of these things, try to think about whether that person is going to be a good fit for the role that you're interviewing for. And if you find similarities or unique things in their resume about their skills or even their hobbies, you can leverage this and use it as a conversation starter when you begin the interview. This will not only make that candidate feel welcome and hopefully relaxed, it'll also make you look like you have done your homework. You've taken the time to know more about this candidate, which will make them feel valued. The second stage is when you lead into the interview. Now, you're approaching this with confidence because you have done your homework, because you understand this person that's in front of you, but you're also curious because you want to know more than what's just on that piece of paper. When the candidate arrives for the interview, they'll probably be waiting for you in the reception area. So I encourage you to walk out and greet them, smile, approach them with a warm look on your face. Try to make them feel comfortable. Shake their hand firmly. Greet them using their name. Even if you're a little bit overwhelmed at that time with other things that might be going on in your job, problems or challenges that you're facing, try to push that aside for the 1 hour of the interview. Try to be present during the interview and present with that person. This will really help them to feel relaxed, and I guarantee it will help the interview to be a lot more successful as well. So once you have greeted the interviewee, you walk them into the room, guide them into the room, and then direct them to the seat that you want them to take at the table. I recommend you start the interview by asking a non-threatening question. If you have something in common with them, like you grew up in the same city, then you can leverage that. If you have a hobby that you both enjoy doing, then you can talk about that. If you can't think of anything else, then simply ask them, did you find the building okay, or did you find the office okay this morning? The point here is to appear to be relaxed for the interview. You need to be relaxed for the interview because this will help the candidate feel relaxed for the interview as well, and it will help you to get to know them a lot better. Next, you need to transition from small talk to the actual interview, and a really easy way to do this is to ask the candidate, was the job description clear to you, or do you have any questions about the role? Now, most people will answer no because they don't want to look unprepared at the beginning of the interview, but some people might actually have questions. So it's really important that you address those questions before the interview starts, because this will help both of you to be relaxed. It's a really good conversation starter to get the interview going, and it will also help both of you to provide the best information possible during the interview. So you can choose the best candidate, and so the candidate as well can give themselves and sell themselves in the best way possible. Now, with the interview underway, it is time for you to start asking the questions that you had prepared in stage 1 of this video. And the best question to start with, I think, is tell me about yourself. The candidate has no doubt prepared for this question because it's one of the most common job interview questions that are asked. And there's a reason for this, because it really gives you a good chance to understand and to hear from the interviewee themselves cool things or special things or unique things about them and about their life. As they talk, look for things that reveal their personality, their temperament, or their behavior, because this is information that you can use to understand whether that person's going to be a good fit for the role, whether they're going to fit into the team and to the company as well. And feel free to ask follow-up questions if you have any. If you don't understand something that they're talking about, or if you want them to elaborate more on something, feel free to ask follow-up questions so that they can do that. The next question is, why are you a good fit for this role? And again, this is a very common interview question. They've probably prepared for it, so listen very carefully to the answer that they have for you. And it's really important that you ask follow-up questions here, just like you do with the previous question, tell me about yourself. Follow-up questions are really important because most people will only give you general information. They don't know what you want to know. And it's really up to you as the interviewer to drill down into the specifics, to ask them follow-up questions so you can get more specific and informative information to help you with your decision as to finding the right candidate for the role. For example, if they talk about having led a sales team, then you want to know what exactly did they do? What were they responsible for? Did they delegate? Did they run meetings? Did they have to give feedback to the people? Did they have to monitor progress? You want to know the exact specifics as to the skills that they have and developed and the experience they have for you to know whether they are a good fit for this role, to know whether they're going to be a good candidate for you to hire. And a brilliant question that will help you understand what is unique about this candidate compared to others is, what is unique about you that is a special contribution to the workplace? The candidate might not have prepared for this question because it's not such a common interview question, but that actually means that you'll get a better answer because their answer is going to be fresh, it's going to be honest, and it's going to be authentic as well, which is really going to help you understand what is special about that person compared to all of the other people that you're interviewing. For example, if they say, I dedicate a lot of time outside of work to developing my leadership and management skill. And last week, I actually tried a new delegation technique that I'd learned about, and it really helped me to get better results for my team. Now, you can follow up by asking questions such as, what was the new delegation technique? Can you explain that to me? And what were the results that you generated for the team or for the company? So again, it's all in the follow-up questions, or follow-up questions to what they said to you so that you can dig deeper, you can drill down into the specifics, and you can get better information to help you make a better decision as well. So you've spent a lot of time getting to know this candidate, and you probably have some idea as to their level of competence as well. But you need to have a deeper insight into their competence and into their skills and abilities. So you really need to ask specific questions around this. A great way of doing this and getting this information from them is to ask them, can you tell me about an average day in your current job? Or you could ask them to tell you about a day in their favorite job that they've had in the past. Either way, what you're really looking for here is to understand their responsibilities, to understand the duties that they have, so you can get an idea of the skills and the competencies that they have built in their previous jobs. So you know whether those skills or competencies are immediately transferable to the job that you're interviewing them for. It also helps you understand how they conduct themselves at work. So if they give you an answer and from their answer you start to think that they have a lot of spare time, that they're not doing a lot of focused work on achieving tasks or finishing tasks, then you might conclude that they're not so great at time management skill or meeting expectations. On the other hand, if they talk about attending meetings, about collaborating with their colleagues, about finishing projects and ticking boxes off on their list, then this might indicate to you that they have exactly what you're looking for and they will be a perfect fit for the role. So again, it's really in the listening. It's really in the asking the follow-up questions to get clarity on what they're saying. And it's also very much in reading between the lines. This is something that you really need to become good at so you can ask the right follow-up questions to give you the answer and the information that you need. Once you ask about their work habits and you have an idea as to how they conduct themselves at work, then you can ask them about a problem they had solved at work, and this will give you a really good idea as to their problem-solving ability. Do they actually solve problems or do they ignore them? Do they solve problems on their own or do they seek help from other people? And how do they communicate when it comes to solving problems? What you're looking for in the answer is to see whether their behavior in relation to solving problems will fit into your team culture. So sometimes people might solve problems alone when you want them to solve problems with other team members. You want them to collaborate and discuss as a group. And other times, people might be very direct in their communication when they solve problems. They might communicate in an abrasive way, and you might not think that this is going to mesh well with other people in your team. It doesn't necessarily mean that those people can't adapt or that they're not going to be or become a good fit for your team, but this is the kind of information that you want to know before you actually hire them. Now, this question, what are your professional goals, will tell you how that person is going to fit into the future of your team and the future of your company. Are they intending to pursue a postgraduate degree? Do they have ambition to work in a completely different industry? Or are their career goals and their career ambitions exactly in line with what your company can offer them? Since hiring and recruiting and training costs money and it takes time and other resources, you really want to make sure that the person you hire isn't going to leave their job in 6 months' time. Now, I know that you can't be 100% sure of this. People change their plans all of the time. But from the interview and by asking this question about their professional ambitions and their career goals, you can get a feeling as to the likelihood of how long that person is going to stay working for your company. So you have a lot of information about the candidate. You understand their competence. You understand their future career goals. But you haven't given the candidate an opportunity to find out whether they'll actually be happy in the role that you have for them. So you need to open up an opportunity so they can ask you questions about this. Ideally, you've left time for them throughout the interview to ask you questions as you discuss various topics. But sometimes people don't ask questions because they're expecting this part to be at the end of the interview. So it's important that you do open up time for them to ask you questions that they might have. Always be truthful in your answers. Always give them as much information as you can without being overly verbose or drawn out. And if you don't know the answer to the something, then tell them. Just simply say that you will find out that answer and get back to them later on, and make sure you do actually get back to them. Once the questions are over, it's time for you to close the interview. And a good way of doing this is to outline the next steps. How long will it take you to make a decision? When can they expect an answer? How will they get an answer from you? By email, by phone, or another method? And if there's another round of interviews that you'd like the top candidates to attend, then you need to let them know about this as well. It's important for you to set clear expectations so the candidate knows what to expect once the interview is over. Because remember, they've put in a lot of time preparing for this interview. They've probably put a lot of heart and a lot of emotion in preparing for this interview as well. There's a lot hinging on them being successful for this interview in many cases. So you really need to be clear with them as to what the next steps will be. Once you've outlined the next steps, then you can close the interview. You thank the candidate for their time, you walk them to the door, or you even walk them to the elevator. You shake hands and you say goodbye. This leaves a lasting impression with the job candidate, which is really important because it shows that you are a professional boss that that person could be working for, and that you're a professional company as well, because remember, you are representing the company every time you conduct a job interview. And the job candidate as well might be interviewing with other companies, so they're going to be comparing the behavior of the bosses or the interviewers that they get from one company to another. And you want to make sure that you rank the best, that you're one of the top companies that they have interviewed with, and the most professional company that they've interviewed with as well. So there you have it, in-depth instruction on how to conduct a job interview. Now, I do have another video on my channel about how to conduct a job interview, which you'll find right up here. I also have a playlist on job interviews, on performance reviews, on conducting meetings, and various things like that that you will need to do as a manager or a leader. That's in a playlist right here. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.